Good morning. I'm Suchitra Dalvie here, talking to you from Mumbai, India. I wanted to thank RHM for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you at this very important meeting, which all of you will be participating in. Primarily, the issues I wanted to air were the concerns that some of us have in this country, those of us who are working for improving the access to safe abortion for women as a right, and the impact that the issue of sex determination and sex selection is having. Essentially, those of you who've been sort of reading about the issue would be aware that the census in India, or the data from 2011, showed an increasingly alarming decline in the sex ratio and less number of females compared to males. This sex ratio, particularly at birth, was considered indicative of sex determination and then sex selective terminations. However, an important issue to also recognize is the historical significance of this particular data, because the census reports from the 1900s have been showing a decline in the sex ratio. And therefore, there is a centuries-old discrimination against the girl child which needs to be recognized, and the context within which the current scenario is being played out. Unfortunately, what has happened is the sort of the dramatic responses which have been made, or even the sentences which were of the million girls missing, has resulted in a recognition of the problem, but not of the spectrum of the problem. So while sex determination is happening at one end, we also have the reality of the girl children who are born being neglected, being subjected to abuse or abandonment, and therefore the need to recognize that just insisting on the girl child being born is not going to be the solution to our problems. Now, on the other hand, while this issue is actually ideally to be placed within the paradigm of gender discrimination, what has happened is it has got constantly conflated with the issue of safe abortion access, because in this entire spectrum, now that infanticide is not such a big player in changing the sex ratio, is that abortion has been identified as the main intervention which is resulting in the alteration in sex ratio. So, while we may have sex determination happening and women going home and actually having a boy child, those processes are much more difficult to track. So the government interventions and the policy interventions have all been to crack down on the ultrasound and abortion clinics. The result of this is that some of our studies and anecdotal discussions are also showing is that doctors are now turning women away. So second trimester women are definitely being turned away because of fear of harassment, since, as we know, statistically half the fetuses are likely to be female in any case. And increasingly doctors are beginning to turn away women who are even coming in for late first trimester. So the question to ask here is stopping safe abortion access going to actually have an impact on sex selection in any way? And the answer, I think, quite clearly emerging over the last decade or so, is that these are two very different issues which need to be dealt with in the larger socio-cultural context. So living in a society which is so patriarchal and where women's status is considered so much more inferior to those of men, it is very difficult to imagine that having one law against sex determination or one particular wing of the government which is dealing with the what we call the PCPNDT Act in our country is actually going to have any kind of impact on the issue at hand. Whereas on the other hand, it is causing tremendous damage to the women's right to access safe abortion services. The Medical Termination of Pregnancy Act, which was passed in India in 1971, is even now much less known to people than the PCPNDT Act, simply because the government has gone all out in informing the community and informing people at large that sex determination is illegal. But the conflation with the issue of sex-selective abortions has become so problematic that in fact people in the community now believe that abortion is illegal. As a result of this, there has been a crackdown on the medical abortion pill sales under the false sort of assumption that these were being used for sex determination and sex selective terminations, whereas actually the medical abortion pills in the country are licensed to be used only up to 9 weeks and therefore could not really realistically have been used for this purpose at all. So that really is the crux of the matter right now, and the difficulty in engaging with the groups who are working on both these issues because somewhere or the other the rhetoric against sex selection is beginning to sound anti-choice, beginning to sound pro-life. We have seen this in some of the posters and the imagery that came out of the government as well as the campaigns. And I think many of those from India who were involved in the anti-sex determination campaign a decade ago have recognized the fallacy of using words like feticide and of considering all doctors to be kind of the villains of the piece, thereby alienating a large group of people who could actually have been supportive of the issue. So I think these are words of caution coming from a country where we've been dealing with this issue for many, many years now. We are unknowingly or sometimes uncaringly creating spaces for anti-choice elements to move in and use their rhetoric, and that we consider now is something that should be avoided at all costs. Thank you.